Let's continue. These guys are in port now. Got a 9 here, backed up there. Yeah, I've been trying to. I would call it trying to at this point, but if they want to move into Alexandria, I guess they can do so. Yeah, with the loss of that core, we can bring it back. Hey, Singh, how you doing? I'm doing very well. Okay, so right now that we have Gettysburg, we're going to see about holding up here. While we refit and format some. Thank you, IKB, for posting a link to the Discord. Okay. So those of you who have watched a lot of what I like to, videos playing, I'm really, these guys, what are they doing? They're marching away from Washington, D.C., the capital. Yeah, it's the indirect approach. I think they're going to have a lot of forces coming in here, and this is going to be hard to crack. But I think if we can get them worrying about other places, they will disperse their effectiveness. You guys, okay, some of these are okay, so okay, you're much supply as I was hoping down here. No, we want you. Oh, I wanted to. Oh well, this clicks. Order is going astray. You got that one general over there. You got Pemberton there. Johnston. This direction with him. Yeah. Oh no, we moved in this turn. Right. Okay, we'll spend 50 MPP on buoyancy tanks for our submarines. IKB would probably like us to do better armored trains. We are at level 1. We only have the... Well, we're building a second one. We'll do what IKB wants us to do here, I'm sure. Yes, we have armored trains. See? Here we... Okay, well, this is a railroad battery. I think we have... Yeah, there's the armored train in production there. Let's get back to research. Okay, leadership. Leonard, I don't want to get too crazy about experimental balloons. That would be useful. Let's do that. Got a lot of production. Okay, I'm not going to overdo it this turn. Let's go back to here. I think an ironclad would be useful. We'll call it the Stonewall. Yes, balloons. Move you out this way. Cover the supply. Your forces are here and here. Now down. Oh. Okay, these guys, yeah. You come back to here, I think. Stukas, Arno, come on. What would we do with a bunch of Stukas? We have no gasoline. They wouldn't fly anywhere. We just have these pretty Stukas sitting around, you know. Well, we do have timber clad, so that may be sort of the equivalent of a cotton clad. I don't know. I do understand, you know, a lot of, you know, yes, trust me, if you take a big, highly compressed bale of cotton, it'll absorb a lot of impact. I don't know how many thick you need to stop a moderately big cannon, but it'll more than stop a musket ball, I'm sure. I am sure. Oh yeah, no, I want to hear about that. No, I don't play Battlefield 5. My main, you know, sort of action game, I know it's not technically a first-person shooter, is War Thunder. I have played some Postscriptum, mostly in the tank driving, but sometimes infantry, and I'm starting to play a little bit of Hell Let Loose. So I don't do the battlefield games. Not that I think they're bad, just never bought any. You could run kerosene. Yeah, maybe. That might. I don't know if that has enough fuel performance for that. Because I have another friend here, Drunken Barbarian, who's in the Discord server, who was a paramedic, and I don't think being in paramedicine, but I know he trained or attempted to train Afghanis. That he doesn't speak very well thereof. Might be an interesting get you guys a conversation about some of that. But yeah, fly on water. No. Okay, we got these guys. Just want to make sure. They're being pushed a bit, but I don't think they're about ready to. Ooh, we should have moved you to here before now. Yeah, I'm a little worried about him getting cut off, but get supply there. That to here. So if he's gonna attack, he has to move out of this town, and we'll take the town. Yeah. So I think if I remember, because it's been years since I've talked to him about the training stuff, he was explaining to an Afghan interpreter who was then, I think, going either through another person or trying to interpret into a different, like, not his Afghan language, because there's multiple languages spoken in Afghanistan. So there was, I think, multiple language barriers. Oh, and the guy who, I'm talking about speaks English, but it isn't his first language either. So I don't know how much was language barriers versus just cultural differences and understanding of things. All right, and these guys next turn we will spend. Okay, well, let's look at purchase, even though we're going to spend Mexican Empire. That's what we have been. Okay, we are. No more names. Yep, let's do that. And we're running supplies through various ports. Mobile. Yeah. In the different states, you're all revolting. I get you. Get the rough seas. Well, British mobilization gets to 60%. If it gets to 100, they come in, as far as I understand. I don't know if I've played the fully played a full game. I know I've toyed around with the Allies in Strategic Command World War II. Oh shit! There goes my. I don't have enough cavalry as it is, and you just killed one of my cavalry units out there. Okay, these guys are getting pounded by way too many forces. They're gonna have trouble. Yeah, run away. Retreat back here. No, I said retreat. Okay, we lost a brigade. We're gonna have to fall back. Like I say, things aren't going 100% our way. They're going well, but they're not. Everything is wondrous. 5 miles and go from Pashtun Wali language to Arabic and then to Dari. Yeah, I'm sure. I've known a few people that have served in Afghanistan in various capacities, including one guy I knew. He was literally in there a year during the Soviet occupation time. So, yeah, I don't remember all that I've been told over the years about various things, but yeah, it is very interesting. Well, they'll come in on the Confederate side if they're going to come in on anybody. The Union is just keeping them out, which would give us a northern front. Okay. Yes, we'll put you there. A Mexican regiment. Mexican brigade. There. Right, now up here, okay, we let ourselves get a little too surrounded. Now, these guys coming to here, they're going to get cut off here, but hopefully they can make it back that way. These guys can get down to here. They'll come to here. They're holding the line around the lake. Come across the mountain. You come up this way. Now these are corps, not just divisions or brigades. So they're considerably stronger. We had some setbacks, including losing a cavalry brigade over here, which I was seriously hoping to... Because right now, all of this is open. Yes, I knew this was going to happen, but I'm not going to get a brigade there in time. Oh, damn it, it's a lot worse than I thought. Okay, that's going to be painful, but I'm trying to save this one unit. Right, but I think I saved the unit there. We got some good corps and divisions coming, but they just weren't there then. Let's look at the supply map here. Okay, there, right, yeah, okay, they should be able to get fully maxed out. Good. Well, would it be a challenge, though, Arno? Arno has asked if I've ever played the Allies in Strategic Command World War II on the Western Front. Now, I'm presuming you're talking war, the War in Europe version versus, the Global War version. See, I've always taken the idea that how to defeat the Axis. Well, can we think of a way? Oh, Well, just do what they did historically, you know, because the Allies won. I mean, it's as simple as that. They won. And the Axis didn't. Now, can you win faster? You know, can you win by 44? There's certainly ways to do that. The question is how much do you push on that? You know, so that's some of the stuff I sort of got to think about when I think of World War II. Right. Okay. So we're going to move you up to here. That'll give us a good look in here so we don't have one of those expensive need to bump into the force to try to win it. So I guess that's my appreciation is, yeah, good that we got that spotted instead of bumping into it. Oops, take out their division, yay. Hurt us a bit, but took out a division. Longstreet's army. This way, this way. So I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I just don't know how, challenging it would be playing it. That's one of the reasons. I can't tell you how much literal time in my life I have spent daydreaming, because I'm like waiting for a buddy to show up or waiting in line at the grocery store or whatever, just as a mental exercise. How could this or that maybe have been done in World War II to change, not necessarily winning or losing the war, but, a campaign or a battle or whatever. And that's a big time what it fascinates me is the what ifs, what would it have taken, that kind of thing. Well, I'm sure it'd be fun. I'm not arguing the funness or not. Okay, we're going to put you on rails and we're going to put you to there. That way it secures this rail line area. I guess there. Okay, a division and a corps are now up there. You can come back to here. Yeah, okay. Oh, we spotted some horsies. Yay, you come back to there, get prepared. Do I move you by rail? Do I reinforce you? Well, we'll see, Arno. We'll see. I'm not going to make a commitment one way or another. Right this moment. We'll just to here, I think, for a moment. No. you can't quite do that. You can occupy them, but with the time scale and whatnot, you can't destroy rail lines or build them. But you can cut rail lines simply by taking control of the territory. Okay, well, see, now they've, my opinion, okay, has somewhat messed themselves up here. Okay, artillery at that. That. Scatter that or there. Quite a bit. Oh, they did not retreat. That is unfortunate. I need more horses. Mosby. Very good cavalry leader. No problem. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, no problem. Yeah, he was doing some training of Afghans as part of a multinational force in Afghanistan, so a bit chaotic. Okay, core on core. And had language barriers and whatnot going on. And they've are not in Carthage. I was expecting them to be in Carthage. Let's move you up that way. I don't know how much is cultural, just the way they understand the world versus the way we understand the world. Enemy contact. Oh, not so bad. Okay. Okay, that will definitely help us there. Okay, that brigade is just too weak, I guess. I don't know. Don't know why that didn't work a little better. There is a potential here, shall we say, for me to Now you're not going to let me invade this port? Ugh. I don't know what's going on. Well, I hear you, but I was able to land here, so I don't think it's raining. When I've moved ships next to it, we can try this here. It's let me just sort of fire at the port, and get shot back at and hurt like that, but not take it. Because this whole line is gray because the Union still controls this. So I don't know. Okay, down here, before we completely forget, move you up this way, you that way. Little tribal people, Helmand, tribes, villages don't care about far up people, which are bordering province, let alone Afghanistan as a whole. Yeah, I understand that they don't have the idea of nationalism, the idea of a nation state, as a people, as a group, that they are tribally oriented. Unfortunately, and I know they did do when we were there. Not me, but the West was there. We did do some of what I'm going to recommend, but I don't know that we did it as well as we could have or should have. But to a hammer, all problems look like a nail. Something to be pounded down. Well, the way to deal with Afghanistan, because I don't know if victory or conquer is the right term. Obviously, we could conquer or be victorious in Afghanistan. I mean, it would happen in less than 24 hours if we push the right buttons. We'll have enough mushroom clouds that there will be no one left in Afghanistan. And it just determines on how, radioactive it is going to be for other people decide to move in. It's restraint by the great powers that allows Afghanistan to continue to be what it is, because the Soviets could have exterminated everybody. The U.S. could exterminate everybody. Even France or Britain could do that if they really wanted to. They might not have enough nukes to get everybody because of the way the hills and whatnot. Some people might survive, but they can get the big cities, of course. But to deal with Afghanistan, you need to destroy Afghanistan. I know I just said there is no national identity there, but destroy the people culturally. The reason they are the way they are is because of their remoteness, their physical remoteness from the rest of the world. Yeah, the way Mongolians are the way they are is again their sort of physical remoteness from the rest of the world. Now there's mostly plains and sort of territory that's really hard to build roads on because it's sort of like in other parts of the steppe, but maybe a bit more extreme in that it goes through a sort of a swamp phase, a hard phase, during certain summer elements, and then into a frozen phase, in winter, whatnot. So remoteness is why it is what it is, because you can look at places like a lot of places along the African coast where there are cities. Well, more Western society has gotten into those parts of Africa than, deeper territories in Africa. So, in this, you can also look at Pakistan. Pakistan is a varied place, and they have their northwest frontier, which is, in essence, more of Afghanistan, in that it's tribal. It's not none of those tribal groups have any loyalty to Pakistan as a national identity. They are, have guns, run around with guns, but guns are basically, I don't know if the death penalty, but serious penalties in the rest of Pakistan. If you have a gun, you get caught with a gun, you're going to jail. The police can show up in the tribal territories, and you can wave hello at them while carrying your rifle, because up there you get to have guns. They're not outlawed there. So the way to deal with Afghanistan is both through physical infrastructure and electronic digital infrastructure, is to destroy their culture, is build roads, is my basic thing. And I know we did build roads, so I'm not saying it didn't happen, but to build roads to go to where it would have taken, I don't know, 4 hours drive, I mean good road, or good sort of straight roads, where they now have roads that the Toyota Hilux can slowly maneuver along, make it so you can go 40, 50 miles an hour down a good surface. Try not to do too many bridges that would easily be blown up or something. Try to get so that people can move around, so that ideas can move around in Afghanistan, and try to put in as much as you can a decentralized electronic system, or an electricity system. And the reason I say decentralized, so no one can like cut the main power lines, or cut blow up the dam, because there was like one major hydroelectric dam, I believe, in Afghanistan. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking of Iraq. But get it set up so that, like a lot of either, windmills or solar panel kind of thing. So it's decentralized down to the, and maybe a few, gasoline or diesel generators, so that people can have electricity that way, so that over the generations coming afterwards, you'll have more contact, physical contact of, if not people, of goods coming in and going out. They can ship out more heroin, or just opium or whatever, but and use that to buy stuff to come in cheaper. First they're going to buy ammunition, I'm sure, but after that, buy other things. And a digital connection to the rest of the world, so that you slowly break down their isolation from the world. That is, no, not railways. Sorry, I knew you would say that. I knew you were going to say it, because they are too easy to cut, and they take too much centralized planning, timetables, and they take too much of a professional class or group of people that will stick to the job when the West leaves, shall we say, maintaining the railways, keeping them functioning, but both the literal railways as well as the engines and whatnot. No, it needs to have somebody who cares about his Toyota pickup truck, not somebody who cares about a collectively owned, whether it's even by the tribe or whatever, collectively owned engine and rail cars or something. No, it is not railways. Sorry, IKB. I know where you're coming from, but that is not the way to do that. That and the monarchy lets you. Well, the monarchy in Afghanistan never really ruled outside of Greater Kabul area, and where he could move his armies, and he only ruled where, this is over the generations are there, only where his army, he could move in strong enough strength, and only why they occupied that territory before, moving on to some other area, and then his rule stopped. Japan needed 2 massive civil wars to bring them out of feudal society. I don't know that they were massive civil wars. No, they were culturally determined, yes, to get out of isolationism. But you got to remember, I wish I was playing one of the Hearts of Iron games because I'd be access to a world map. But Japan, prior to Perry showing up with his American fleet, had a great transportation system. It was called the Sea. All the significant cities either are on the coast or have easy access to the coast. Sometimes canals or managed rivers going inland. They did not use wheeled vehicles, wagons. They knew what wagons were, and the emperor would move around on them occasionally. But all transportation, and I was watching some Japanese language samurai type stuff that's on YouTube, old series from like the 80s and 90s with subtitles. My Japanese isn't that good. I did take it 3 years in high school, so I do have some Japanese, but it's not that good anymore, even as what it was. And they were, one of the episodes of one of the things was how the weight that people had to carry for porters to carry people's cargo around, that they literally carried it on their back, and it was a paid sort of job. Not sort of, it was a paid job, and how much and you get paid by the day or whatever, but somebody they were over, you're only supposed to, I don't know, have 40 pounds of weight or whatever it was, and it was being heavier, so it was getting too overburdened with weight. So Japan did not use a wagon system prior to the Americans showing up, and like I say, they knew what it was, but they did not use it. Their roads were not built for it. In fact, a lot of their roads had steps, not like steps like we think of, like going a staircase, but going along straight and then taking a little bit of a step down and then going straight for a ways, instead of trying to keep it all smooth. They just naturally every 10 yards or something you'd have like a 4 or 6 inch step or something, and some of their roads were designed that way. Sort of for animals and humans, rather sort of keep it on a somewhat of a more level thing. But they're what they had of a transport system was small shipping, from the boat size and going up to small ships, so that they're very easily penetratable, unlike Afghanistan. And there were a few revolts. I call them revolts over massive civil wars, but the beginning of the Meiji period, not the best expert on it. And so I very well could be wrong. You can prove me wrong on it. A step from road to pavement. It's sort of like if you look at the Inca Empire, which is the South American empire that the Spanish encounter. they had a series of roads around, but they did not have the wheel. They had rollers to like roll big stones around, but they did not have the wheel. So they didn't have carts, and they definitely had a post system for at least important messages with runners, human runners. And so their roads were sort of like we would think of tracks, and sort of level. I'm not saying there wasn't slopes, but kind of, ever so often there would be a step up or a step down for someone to run on. Or they used llamas as beasts of burden. So, as pack animals. So they would put on, you know, bales of food or whatever they're moving. So the idea of take a step up or take a step down every 5 yards or 5 feet or whatever. I know you Europeans, 5 yards, just think meters. Just that there would be a step up or down, or it could be, if you're going up and down a hill or a mountain or something like that, a lot more. But something that a llama could easily traverse, kind of thing, and that's how they work things, unless it was going to be rollers for heavy stone work. That kind of a road system, as opposed to a road system meant for wheels. So it's just simple steps periodically. And so, yeah, Japan also, prior to, you go way back, but you go back to the 1600s. You have the Tokugawa shogunate that, in essence, stops the major civil wars or ongoing warlord periods. And that's starting, even though the emperor was still there and basically impotent as power center, still very ceremonially significant, but as a political power center, gone. So you had about 200 years, I guess, of the Tokugawa shogunate, and largely peaceful, at least on the Japanese scale, peaceful period of although feudalistic, not exactly the feudal system, but that we know in Europe, but very similar, going on prior to the Meiji thing, but still with that idea, yeah, but it's still a central authority. Whenever the central authority cared to poke its nose down the chain of command, and so Japan had that, and there was, I would call it a national identity, even if it wasn't quite defined as modern nationalism. And they all, except for up in Hokkaido with their, I forget their other, and they're vanishing more, just not, culturally vanishing. There are other sort of people up there that, not Inuits, they're not Eskimos, but they're another sort of, both, from my understanding, both a genetic as well as a cultural difference people. And Hokkaido was sort of the weird frontier prior to that very little Japanese were up there, as we would think of them. The rest, they all speak basically the same language, have, the same monetary system, all that kind of stuff was all going on for hundreds of years prior to serious Western contact, because prior to that, it was the Portuguese for a while until that sort of went sour, and then the Dutch got to have a small, tiny little island within a port, basically, that they could sort of stay there. Those that stayed there permanently, but they were only allowed off the island temporarily, and a few ships a year showed up for trade and would go away. Basically, a convoy a year kind of thing, or something, I think it was. And so very few permanent Dutch residents. And so that's the Ainu, however you pronounce that. Yeah, that's exactly who I'm thinking of. Drunken Barbarian, yeah. So, and so, yes, they had, like I say, Portuguese and Dutch contact with Europeans, but that it was on such a minor scale compared to the rest until the Americans showed up. See, American imperialism really mostly looks like, knock, knock, we're here. and someone says, "Go away." No, no, knock, knock. We're here. No, go away. Knock, knock. We are really here. We're not. We're not going to take over your country or anything, but we're here and we want to trade with you. And China under Clinton, knock, knock. We're here again with China, and China embraced that for a while, and it's now. I don't know what's going to be the future with China, but before under the Qing Empire, they were sort of going to the British. Were going knock knock. We're here, but we also want little bits of territory and things. The Chinese were going no 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 until they got blasted enough that they go, well, what can we do about it? Kind of things. So, hey, Ragar, civil war in the U.S. Well, yes, we are playing that right here while I'm talking about other things. To be fair, though, the potion war massive, but a quick Google less than 10,000 died. Yeah, kind of the samurai revolt, and it's been years since I've looked into it because I went through my weeb stage before you guys even came up with the term weeb back in high school, back in the 80s. And read about this and read a bunch of books. I forget a whole lot that I used to know. A lot of the sort of samurai stuff was samurais, just refusing to change and would rather die than change. And they even knew they were at different stages, knew they were going to lose, and they were just wanted to go out fighting instead of think they're going to win. And maybe even their heart of hearts knew that it was best for Japan to change, but they just felt they couldn't, is how I'm going to describe it. It was typically bribes government officials, and then country basically provides free dividends to the U.S. Oh, well, there's a whole lot of that kind of stuff going on as well, too. But mostly America, modern imperialism, doesn't want significant territorial significant territory from its imperialism. We are moving back rapidly into the Philippines right now, but all we're wanting currently, it's stated as access to bases. I think it might be understood that it will become ownership of bases because of sensitivity to certain equipment. Because we used to own, Subic Bay Naval Station or whatever, and whatnot. We used to own some base. I'm talking post-independence. We're getting access back to some of the bases. I think it might end up actually be turning over to becoming American bases there. But that's all we want is a few bases. And, economic penetration and other things for sure. But it's not that we're trying to grab up a bunch of Filipino territory. Oh, Americans are showing up down here. And no, we're not going to attack. We're actually going to reinforce. So that's American imperialism versus other imperialisms. I would say China is pushing for more than that in many cases. Okay, let's go to purchase France. Yeah, we lost a brigade. Choosing Mexican forces because I don't have to bring them in. Okay, 375. Wow, that's just going to take exactly what we have. Well, we're going to do that because it's going to take a while to get in here. So, back on the Confederate. Yeah, I think we're about maxed out. We can bring out some more specialty forces, but that's about it. Okay, so, couldn't have retreated him out. Well, talking about other things. I really like hanging out with you guys. I know. Hopefully, it's fun to listen to me blather on about things. Okay, well, we got P Ridge. No, I don't think we're going to push too hard there. Moving up, we're moving up. We got these guys here. On a railway. Okay, well, we need to get on a railway. I just don't feel like pushing into the unknown without good reconnaissance right now out in the west, because we're doing reasonably well over here. What I'm worried about is if we attack here and and even if we take that division out with the, secondary and third attacks, we're going to be left weak for some of these corps. Well, these are all divisions here, but there's some corps down here. Those are 4 corps to come in and stomp out what we have there. So I think we're going to sort of sit on that as well. I'm really disappointed this whole thing was a fiasco here. Don't know why that isn't working out better. Beauregard's been sitting down here for a long time, doing really nothing. So, yeah, let's bring him over here. He can support Bragg, pushing this way with Pemberton and Johnson pushing up the Mississippi, Sterling Price out here, and Stan Watty out there. That's good. You need Gatling guns. Yeah. They didn't know what to do with Gatling guns in the American Civil War, I would say. Okay, British blockade runs. From what little I know, Confederate Foreign Minister reports diplomatic success. Good with Britain. Or high seas, maybe. The government was suitably impressed with them, but they didn't order any. The Union government. I think the only Gatling guns that were used in the Civil War were private purchase by just a few, like battalion or brigade commander types that were rich enough to buy these very expensive toys. And through much of the Gatling gun's career in America, in Britain is where I sort of know of them, and both in colonial type actions, American colonial actions. Well, in the Spanish-American War, they were using some Gatling guns still. That's right around 1900, but in the 1870s and whatnot, pushing into the American West, and the British, in places like India and Africa, Omdurman and other battles that happened in Sudan. They were often used like field artillery. So it's, and in a way, the way that the British would use them would be, and I think the Americans as well, as if you were just firing canister shots out of artillery pieces. And I'm not saying they weren't effective at doing that, but that's just the way they were used, and they were getting lighter and lighter. So, but was there more to the Union's goals, or was the U.S. Civil War literally over the use of slaves? Next. Okay, you missed some of my earlier talk on that, but we can cover it again. I know next to nothing other than the Gettysburg and glory have shown me. Yes. Okay, we got an armored train. Where can we put it? We can put it right there. The goal was not, the fight was not over slavery. That is a modern retcon of the American Civil War. The fight was over the Union. Lincoln was known to be anti-slavery, and I don't have all the quotes in there, but he was willing to accept continued slavery if it meant the Union staying together. Most of the people in the North were racist in the sense that they thought black people were inferior. Not racist in the sense that they hated black people or disliked them. They just thought of them as sort of like children, But they were also against slavery, the people in the North. But they didn't want to, most people, I'm saying, and I would say the overwhelming majority of the people in the North didn't want to go and die freeing slaves. They were willing to fight for the Union, though. It was a fight for the Union because the Confederacy was leaving the Union. That is how, okay, now, what the Confederacy was doing, I wanted to get out to this for once. West Virginia didn't exist. It was just Western Virginia, and it was part of Virginia, so they could own slaves there. But these were very poor people, Appalachian people, very few slaves in existence. Maryland was a slave state. Kentucky was a slave state. Montana was a slave state. Texas was brought in as a slave state. There was very little slavery. I don't even know if slavery was legal in Texas as an independent country, because it was independent for about 10 years. But it comes into the South as a slave state. The Indian territories were slave territories. Many of the Indian tribes owned slaves, black slaves. The idea was, as they were moving west, from the Southern perspective, knowing that the northern states were against slavery and would like to unlike again certain modern retcon types, um, would like to abolish slavery. There was even Jefferson Davis. No, not Jefferson Davis. God. He was the president of the Confederacy, and this is what I'm thinking. Thomas Jefferson, who wrote our Declaration of Independence, was going to have all men or whatever, something about being free. And that was struck from the Declaration of Independence over insistent upon the southern colonies at the time, before independence, obviously, because they hadn't written the thing yet. They were just in rebellion at that point, not seeking independence yet. And whether they were actually trying to seek independence or just rebelling to get better treatment from the central government or not, was still yet to be determined. Was trying to free the slaves. Now, a lot of people say a lot of bad things about Thomas Jefferson. Well, see, Thomas Jefferson, I think, was in his 20s at the time of signing the American independence. And he inherits his land, and it's his property, and he's a very wealthy person. But he basically goes into debt personally, helping to fund the American War for Independence. So he is never able to free his slaves because of the debts that were outstanding against him. You can't just free the slaves, because if you start doing that, someone will come in and take the slaves, because as compensation for the debt. So you cannot just free slaves. They're property. It's like, well, you own, like if you have land, large or small, you can't just give it away if somebody has, a lien on it, meaning you borrowed money from the bank and you got to pay the bank back. You can't just give away that land to somebody else and not pay the money back to the bank. So Thomas Jefferson could have sold his slaves, but he couldn't just free them. So he doesn't like slavery, but he is a slave owner. So from the earliest days of the founding of the United States, particularly the Carolinas and Georgia, but also Virginia, Maryland as well, were slave states. And there was always the idea that if you were going to ban slavery, they very well may leave the Union. So as states are being progressed westward, they were trying to keep a balance. The bank slaves than his, in a way, IKB, in a way, and I'm not saying there is nothing he could have done. Okay, I'm not saying there isn't. I'm not saying there is or isn't something he could have done about it. But I also think the person that he wasn't going to go into poverty either. Somehow what you might, a modern person might just go, well, couldn't he somehow this or other thing and get, sell everything out but the slaves and pay all that money back and somehow do it in free? Yeah, he very well might have been able to work something out, but he couldn't just free the slaves and wave goodbye to them without serious consequences to the situation. So it wasn't, and my understanding, majorly goes into debt over the, American Revolution and what's going on. That's my understanding, and I could be wrong, but prove me wrong with facts and not just someone says something, because I've heard it from some fairly reliable sources over the years. And with what happens in Kansas, because Kansas comes in eventually as a free state, and that's talking earlier about John Brown and his terrorism that he and his gangs commit, and I would call them terrorism, not just guerrilla fighting. It was killing people, and it wasn't just because it was fighting over the Kansas territory. It was going to be coming in. Is it going to be free or is it going to be slave? So a lot of Southerners were moving into there, were being encouraged to move into there, bringing some slaves with them. And it wasn't just the idea of, showing up and pointing guns at him. Hey, this guy's free now or something. No, it was terrorism going on. Well, when that comes in as a free state, and Lincoln, who is a free, there's basically 4 presidential candidates, at least 3 or 4. There's definitely 2 Democrat. It's all messed up. Lincoln comes in with a minority of votes, but majority of electoral college. Yeah, slavery was definitely a political issue. Violence used, yes. And the South sees, and especially seeing with Lincoln being inaugurated in 1861, elected in 1860, South Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina is the first state. Some of these core states down here decide to go, realizing that if they stay in the Union, they're eventually going to be out. Free states are going to outnumber. Oh, and it's also well known that the population in the North is much larger than in the South. The slavery wasn't going to last long, is their perception. So they were just going to get out now. Then I believe, and this is some of this, I think, some of the Union garrisons in the South were evacuated just because they were forts. Most of the time when you see fort in the United States, like Fort Dodge, they often were, that just means military base. Most of the time there's no real fortifications. Like we think, sometimes they think like logs, fence, a log fortress, if you will, or whatever, a log castle or something like that. No, most of the time there were no fortifications. Maybe a blockhouse or 2 that you could get in and shoot from around it, but mostly they're just army bases and they're called forts. And that includes things way off in the east. Now, there are coastal fortifications. That's a different matter, and which were shown here in real fortifications. So I think there was some evacuating of some federal troops in the South. And here in Charleston, Fort Sumter was a federal fort sitting in the middle of the harbor, sitting there basically peacefully. The state orders the fort to be evacuated because it's literally sitting in the middle of the harbor. I was there as a kid, long, long time ago. Took the tour with my parents. And the only way the Union can keep the fort going is by sea. The Confederates, the South Carolinian Confederates order the fort to be evacuated. The federal garrison says no, as they're ordered not to. The Confederates are set up, sort of cotton bale kind of forts around it with some large cannons that they acquired from somewhere. Not exactly sure where, whether they may have been part of the state militia or something, I don't know. But they acquire some large cannons and start blasting the fort. Basically sort of turn most of it into rubble. And because of the way Charleston Harbor is and where it is set up, simply by them erecting their sort of earthenwork and cotton bale fortifications, makes it impossible to resupply, garrison. It's all, converging fire on any ships coming in. And so the garrison surrenders. There are no casualties, as far as I can remember, in destroying the fort. Basically, the commander just orders everybody into the deeper bunkers that, where the munitions are stored or whatever, and so you blast away the outer elements of the fortification and just sort of hide down in there. And then at that point, they, realizing that they can't, they can't even shoot back anymore, they surrender. That then triggers Lincoln. I'm sure I'm getting some of the details wrong, but the overall story is right. Lincoln to call up I don't know if it's like a 90-day or a 70-day or whatever. I think it's like either a 90 or 70. No, I think it's like a 90-day or maybe it's 180-day. I don't know. It's a short period. He tries to get about 70,000 volunteers to show up for the Union Army. New volunteers in Washington, D.C. They all get railwayed into there. That, because this army is going to then march down into Georgia, South Carolina and Georgia, which have joined this. That then gets Virginia. I don't know whether North Carolina had already, but Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, Florida, all the rest of the Confederacy, all the states that eventually come into the Confederacy, all come in at that period of time. Once Lincoln calls up his forces, the Confederates from much of the areas, and I don't even know if maybe some Texans show up, move up into what becomes the Army of Northern Virginia up here to oppose this. Whatever the period of time is starting to near its end for these enlistments, so Lincoln finally orders the army. The General Winifred Scott is in charge of the overall, the highest ranking general, and he does a very good job, I understand, organizing up all of the Union Army. He did a decent job fighting down in the Mexican-American War 10 years earlier, but he's now an old man. He never has a field command. He's sort of, sort of like George Marshall was for World War II in the early stages of the American Civil War. He's doing that for the Union, and I think does it very well, but gets whatever the field commander is and basically orders them to push into the South, and that's where you get the first Battle of Manassas, or the Union calls it Bull Run. I'm going with Manassas because the Confederates won the battle. So I call it by the victor gets to name it. So, well, I say terrorism, not just violence for political ends. To me, terrorism is when I'm in London, either walking to an underground station, basically, for those I know, Drunken Barbarian and IKB know what I'm talking about with the underground. But some of the underground, transportation system in London has stations in the same location as train stations that go regionally around, but it's an urban train system. So either I'm walking towards a train station, and this literally happens to me, and I get there and I'm not allowed to go in, or I'm on the underground and we stop at a underground stop. An announcement comes over the loudspeakers on the train saying, "We're at the whatever station, and you can get off here if you want, but due to a IRA announcement," or whatever they would call it, I forget, that they were going to plant a bomb, because the IRA at that stage wasn't really trying to kill people. They would plant a bomb and then make a telephone call in, use some sort of authenticating, I don't know what it was, so that they knew it wasn't just, so the British authorities knew it wasn't just a crank call of some teenagers, but it was really, a proper IRA terrorist group has planted a bomb in this train station. It's going to go off sometime today after 12 o'clock or something, and you let them know an hour or 2 hours before or whatever, doing these kinds of call in. And there really was a bomb. It's not just a, fake call in, but somebody dropped off a bomb that, I'm in an underground, they stop, I'm on the train saying, you can get off here, or we're going to drive through the train station, like Victoria train station or underground station that links there. I forget whatever it was exactly. And you can get off on the station afterward. But we're not stopping in the train station. It was the one I was planning on getting out on. That there's a bomb planted supposedly there or something. And I don't know the stages of collection, identification and collection. A few years later, I was trained on how to, the procedures of how to search for a bomb and what to do, if you have a bomb threat. Not on what wires to cut, but how to clear an area to look for the bomb, what to do kind of thing. And when you found the bomb, there's the bomb, walk away from it and tell everybody else and get everybody away from it, of course, and call the police and the bomb squad and let them know. But if you've had a bomb threat, how to search things. So I've had some training because of some stuff in the past on some of those kind of security issues myself, but this was some time later. So yeah, I call that a terrorist organization that, yes, by that point, the IRA really wasn't trying to do a mass casualty event. And I know later on, after the War on Terror and the London bus bombings and other things that they've done in which the Islamic terrorists were trying to actually kill lots of people. And earlier on, the IRA were trying to kill people. But they were targeting what was a civilian, economic in the sense that people maybe trying to get to work or get home from work or whatever and disrupting their day, but are not targeting, not trying to just blow up a railway bridge to cut a railway from doing it. They're putting it in a railway station and where there are people there, and it's a small bomb that's only going to really hurt people if it goes off, and if they ignored, didn't pay attention to the threat. I presume the bomb was set to go off. I think sometimes they may have planted bombs and didn't actually have the timer set, just actually have a bomb there to make it real. That to me is terrorism, because they are trying to create terror in the populace. The tube is terrorism incarnate, the tube, yeah. Yes, I know they call it the tube, but I'm trying to talk to people who aren't necessarily in on the right terms there, IKB. I thought the tube was fascinating as an American from the West Coast. It was fascinating, and as someone who did it, also younger. I mean, that was when I was a young adult in those days when I was in London. But as a younger child, taking some like the sort of coming in, flying in with, again, parents to whatever airports, and then taking the the New York subway system that London's was much, much cleaner. So yeah, as remembering that. But yeah, so, where a guerrilla warfare would be saying blowing up power lines out in the middle of, somewhere that isn't going to affect, anybody directly other than cutting the power to a town or to a city. I'm not saying they're not to do effect, but you're not creating terror, you're creating disruption by not having power. Or by blowing up a bridge, but in such a way, doing it at such a time in which there are expected no passengers, and presumably the rail companies know that the bridge has been blown, so no trains are going to accidentally, roll off of it. You're just doing an act of guerrilla warfare, um, targeting, military occupation, targeting other infrastructure. That is guerrilla warfare. Well, very good to hear, Drunken Barbarian. Very good to hear. So that is how I can define violence. Political violence can be terrorism. It can also be, somebody who when they decide to snipe at people, and even knowing that there's a huge group of people out there that are in essence that person's enemies, they're only targeting the police or maybe the political leadership, but they're not like machine gunning down crowds of people. They're trying to assassinate a political leader or others. And this is why terrors, I think is how they pronounce it in Rhodesia. Someone who might, and I'm not saying accent, but I think that's how, because it's sort of they abbreviated it. They talked about that. Is because the quote unquote guerrillas that were fighting the Rhodesians, they'd attack farm vehicles, they'd attack farms. I mean, so a lot of little trucks and little cars, had guys riding around, the rural farmers with military grade, FNFALs and Uzis and whatnot, just because they were being stopped and with the unarmed and attacked and killed. Not just, like stopped and robbed, give me all the money in your pocket or something. They were killing the farmers when they were isolated around, driving between their farms or their farms and towns or whatever. And they had to put security fences around and arm themselves up. And so they were attacking what otherwise people that were not active in security operations, even if they were a reserve soldier at some times, but when they took their uniform off and were just being a farmer, they would be attacked. And of course, they shot down with a surface-to-air missile a commercial airliner that they perfectly knew. And you want to go, oh well, how do we know that they knew it was that? Well, they then find the wreck and find people alive and shoot the passengers, women and children. They shoot the passengers that were alive after the plane crashed. I mean, it was enough of a wreck that there were 20 or 30 survivors. A few people had crawled off into the bush or whatever, it survived. But they definitely, and when they came back, they found these people gunshot wounds and otherwise no other significant injuries. So they were targeting civilians. So that's why in Rhodesia they're called terrorists, because enough of the guerrillas, if not all of the guerrillas, were perpetrating terrorist attacks. Ari Versing, how you doing? You related to I'm going to butcher the name up here. Sachin Danansing. I don't mean to butcher the names, but yes, or some other Singh I know is a common name in India, but I'm doing very well. Thank you. How are you doing? So I, political violence doesn't, you can just be guerrilla, can be terrorism. It depends on how it's targeted. That is, and that, words need to have meanings and definitions. So not all guerrillas are terrorists. Some guerrilla type fightings are terrorists. And then there's just terrorists that are, I guess you could call sort of urban guerrillas or whatever, but yeah. All right. Okay. We are here. We are going to move up our divisions. Okay. Different account or different name on the account. Cool. Wow. He moved way there. And I am not going to trust anymore. Oh shit, we can't get to here? Why can't we get to here? We're over here. We have rail connections to here, but not to there. If we just ride down to here, we're going to get there in just about as much time. Okay. Oh, it's your real name. Okay, no problem. Sorry if I don't keep track of these things well. Okay. Yeah. Right.